Okay? So, what we're talking about is the groove weld size. All right? Now we'll get into here in a second. Talking about the reinforcement. For right now, let's talk about the weld size. Especially in a groove weld. Our weld is never sized larger than the plate, the material, the thickest piece of material that we are welding. So say if this piece was only 1/2 inch and this piece was 1 inch, this is a 1 inch groove weld size. 1 by 1/2. Most typically you're going to see them, they're going to be equal thickness pieces. So if this was a 1 inch piece of material, this weld size would be 1 inch. Welds are sized off of their weakest link. Okay? Really simple. If you have a chain, a big logging chain, and it had a broken link in the middle, and you tied it together with baling wire, now you have you don't have a full logging chain again, you have a logging chain with a breakable link. The baling wire is not as strong as the logging chain. Same thing with the rope. If you have a rope and part of your rope is cut, that's going to be the weakest part. So we always go to the smallest size of a weld, and that is how welds are sized. The weakest link, so to say, smallest size of the weld, is the weld size. Okay? So if this weld is under-filled, and this was 1 inch and it was only a 7/8 weld, and it's calling for a 1 inch weld, then it is out of spec. Okay? On the same token, if this comes down 1/2 inch and this goes up another 1/2 inch, from bottom to top would be a 2 inch weld, length or distance, doesn't matter. This weld size is considered 1 inch weld, as thick as where the toes meet the base metal. Okay? Now there's also a reason, you're going to hear me when we get into this, that we're going to say you are not allowed any more face or root reinforcement than 1/8 inch. So the reinforcement on the face and the root does not count as part of the weld size. Just what we said. 1 inch, you're allowed 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 of an inch here per code. That's D11 code. ASME codes can be a lot more strict. Certain procedures can. I have seen some that say 332 or less. That has to be within 332 or less as well. Most typical D11 code is going to tell us 1/8 of an inch on both pieces. So, say you're right at max for 1 inch, 1/8 inch here, 1/8 inch there, we are now at 1 1/4 inch weld. However, still a 1 inch weld. Okay, the reinforcement does not count as part of weld size. Complete joint penetration groove welds are used where the maximum load carrying capacity is required. Okay, we're moving on to page 120, chapter 4. Talk about the groove weld fusion terms. Okay? So we're looking at this piece of material. So this is, before we welded it, this is our angle prepared. Okay? So, after welded, I got a different slide I prefer to use. But let's talk about this for now. This is as welded. The weld interface is the line between the weld and the heat affected zone. So as you can tell, the depth of fusion, this is how much your weld went into the base metal. Your interface, as you can see, is where your filler metal material stopped penetrating the base material. Okay? Now the fusion face, the fusion face is no more than your prepped material's surface edge. Okay, as you can tell. Now, when we're looking before welded, this is the same thing. It's called the groove face. Okay? So it's the same line. It's the same edge. But before welded, it's groove face. After welded, it has now become the fusion face, all right? Weld interface is all along where it ties into the base metal. So you can tell the depth of fusion is the amount of penetration or fusion from the fusion face to the weld interface.